I'm Bree Luck, and you are listening to the Pause to Go podcast, where we explore the process of turning life's transitions into stellar transformations. You can expect interviews with experts, straight talk with remarkable humans, and conversations about making the most of every phase of life. Because when we approach life's stickiest spots with curiosity, support, and a little bit of inspiration, anything is possible. So whether you're on your way to work or settling in with your favorite beverage, together we can pause to go. As a solopreneur, I really like the flexibility to work from pretty much anywhere, so I'm happy to head down to Code-Based Co-working, where I can enjoy the company of others while I tackle my to-do list. Also, they have a state-of-the-art, consumer-friendly podcasting studio that is frankly my home away from home. So head over to Code-Based Co-working, check it out, and when you do, tell them that Bree sent you. I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Matthew Reynolds. He is someone I have been hoping to have on the podcast for a long time, and now he has a book out, so it's the perfect time to bring him on. Matthew and I met years ago when I was working for a theater company, and he came in as a guest artist and also as a facilitator to lead a workshop for our staff and board on crafting our equity lens. And the workshop helped us examine not only our personal biases and the impact of conditioning on our personal choices, but also to look at how that played out on the structural level at our organization. It was a super powerful workshop, and it was one of those workshops that I left and I felt moved, but over the years, I realized the exponential impact that that work has had on my life. And truly, it has set me off on a different trajectory on a personal level and on a professional level. And for better or for worse, that's thanks to Matthew. I think it's better, by the way. Just want to be clear. In fact, I know it. Matthew's new book, Biggest, Fullest, Brightest, Shifting the Consciousness of Humanity, is part memoir, the story of his life, which is a really compelling story, and part very practical workbook, looking at how we are conditioned and where are our thoughts, not our thoughts. I love it so much, actually, that I'm going to give it away. So I have 2 copies of it. One is still wrapped in cellophane. The other is dog-eared, written in, marked up, highlighted, all of the things. And I'm giving away the nice clean copy, by the way, just so you know. You're not getting my used copy. You're getting a nice clean copy. So here's how I'm going to give it to you. Anyone who leaves a positive review, I'm just going to name that I want it to be a positive review. If you have a negative review, that's fine too. Email me. Email me with your negative review. I will address anything. Anyone who leaves a review on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify, I will enter into a drawing for this book. And here's the thing. I can't tell who you are when you leave a review. So if you can take a screenshot of your review, or, if you're doing it on your computer, you can take a picture with your phone and DM it to me at Instagram or Facebook, or send it to me in an email. My email is in the show notes. I will reply to your DM or email. I will be so happy to hear from you. And also, I will enter you into a drawing for the book. In this conversation, we explore some of the content that he talks about in the book, but also there's a little bonus content too. So I think you'll really enjoy that. And now here is Matthew Reynolds, author of Biggest, Fullest, Brightest, Shifting the Consciousness of Humanity. So Matthew, are you in Hawaii? Are you back in Hawaii now?
I am back in Hawaii. I'm back home. I've been here since the 11th, and I'm here until the 20th of September. And then I'm off to Vancouver, BC, where I'll be officiating a wedding. And I'm hoping right now, I'm trying to set up. There is a friend on Facebook. I've only ever known them there. I've never spoken live like this with them. And I can't remember. I think we might have joined a similar kind of like group that was looking at like animal medicine cards and shaman work, et cetera, et cetera. And we kind of became friends from there and Facebook friends. But she works at a women's correctional facility, and she brought my book in there. And there's a trans woman there who really identified with the book and has been working through it, and came to my friend and said, I think he would be great to come in and speak to us as a guest speaker. And so I'm partway there of combining in my trip to go officiate the wedding, to drive 2.5 hours to this correctional facility and talk with the women there about my book and those who've read it, and then go back for rehearsals, make it back in time for rehearsal dinner that evening. But yeah, so that's my next trip.
Oh, intense. Well, you travel often, and every time you do, it is packed full. I have never known you to have a not packed full adventure. But the book that you're speaking about is your new book, Biggest, Fullest, Brightest. And Matthew, I tore through the book this week and have read all of it. I'm about halfway through the exercises in it. I love how it is such a deeply intimate memoir and workbook. And it feels so beautifully you as I feel you. I don't know if it's you. Who am I to know? But it feels so much like my experience of you. So I want to thank you for writing such a useful workbook that is also such a beautiful invitation to learn from your journey.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's wonderful to hear from someone. The book has gone out, and I was bombasted with folks sending photos that they got the book and that they received it. And then I hadn't heard anything except for this friend of mine in Vancouver. And then recently, earlier this week, I talked with my publisher, and unbeknownst to me, she's gotten all these testimonials about what the book's meant to them, but no one's come directly back to me about how the book has been affecting them, or what it's been doing for them, except for now you as well, from my friend Kathleen in Vancouver. So thank you for saying that. It really means a lot to me. It's a bit nerve-wracking putting that much of myself out there, even though I do that on the daily when I talk with people, trying to live my truth and be authentic to the person who I was born to be, and letting that person live in this existence. And so, yeah, I'm just really appreciative to hear those words today. So thank you for that, Bree.
Absolutely. I am really struck by the complete act of courage that it takes for anyone to put their story and their way of life into the world with such strong vulnerability. And to not hear back for a while is such an act of faith. Like, how did you do that? How are you still smiling at me today when with that unknown?
I think the biggest thing is that I've been busy, right?
Yeah.
You were just saying that I fill my days, I fill it up, and I live life. You know, as I say in the book, the past is our education. So for a while there in my journey, I wasn't looking at the past as my education. It was definitely a source of caging me in, causing huge bouts of anger and depression and an introspection, of negative self-talk, of shame and guilt, of saying, of course, these things are happening in my life right now because look at what happened in my past, and not really allowing myself to learn and grow from that past. And so I think to this day, that's part of it. No, I'm not saying that days didn't go by that I didn't think, oh, no one's responded about my book. No one said anything to me. I'm not saying that that hasn't happened, but it doesn't have this hold over me. Like I didn't sit and dwell on it all day long. It's not the reason why some days I choose to stay in bed and pull the covers up and not get out of bed. You know, those days are fewer and farther between. But when they happen, I recognize and give myself grace and really talk myself into this place of I deserve to stay in bed and to rest. I deserve to be introspective about some of the things that are happening. I deserve to look at how that is part of my authenticity and the authentic self that I'm putting out there. And so, like I said, if I'm living that, that's my day to day, then I don't have these larger bouts of shadow, as I call it, holding me underneath the covers and me not being able to befriend shadow and say I get what I'm supposed to be learning from you, thank you for that, and to be able to continue on through my day.
You write about that in the book. You write about that decision or pathway of really letting your emotions come and experiencing them without shame, just experiencing them in their fullness and taking shame out of the equation. And I know it's an ongoing process. I would imagine that
Yes.
shame is an insidious little element that does creep in.
It does.
It's like always like right there, ready to find the weak spot. But I've known you now for several years, and one of the things that I can say about you that inspires me consistently is how fully and beautifully and without judgment, which I think is the counter to shame, right, is judgment. How without judgment you approach the world and other people. So how long has that journey been for you to come to that place?
Well, let's see. On the 4th of this month, I turned 53 years old. And so,
Congratulations.
as you alluded to, thank you, that journey has been ongoing. And I speak in the book of checkpoints, places within my life that now that I am looking at the past as my education, where I can see certain things got uprooted and I was able to see more clearly aspects of myself or aspects of the world around me and how it wanted me to be and not necessarily how I wanted to be in the world and how I wanted to live my life. And also the people along that journey. And one of the biggest shifts, which I met you towards the end of my time in the classroom, was becoming an educator and going through the master's program at Southern Oregon University and then choosing to stay in Southern Oregon, where I was fortunate to be asked to work at the school, help build a school, because they were shifting from a large comprehensive high school to 4 smaller schools. And so I helped craft the way that school was going to run and really looking at my philosophy of education. And that's when my past really started to clip through my life and really started to come up because I was listening to what my professors were asking of us as educators. And it was a lot about self-reflection. It was a lot looking at those ideas to make sure for me in the way that I took it, that I'm not projecting that onto my students, that when I have all these mirrors in front of me and they might be triggering my past, that I have an understanding of my past, that I know not to inflict upon them the traumas that some of my past inflicted upon me, and not impress upon them and say that they have to think like me, be like me, and have this unconditional belonging in my room. You know, I wanted to just have that idea of unconditional belonging there. I didn't want, you can belong in my classroom if you're always on time, if you always turn in your homework, if you have grades that are B's and above, if you have, because those are all conditions. I may be open-hearted, I may be accepting of diverse ideas and ideologies and sexual orientations and ethnicities, but I still have these criteria that you can only belong if you're a good student or if you're this or that. I wanted that to be unconditional, and I wanted it to come from a place of unconditional love. And so, really looking at that, those are some of the key factors that really kind of accelerated me looking at some of the things that you find in the book that I'm trying to pass along to folks, tools that people can then fit in their grip and use the tool for their lived experience, and not necessarily just mine. And I got a lot of that from Brene Brown's work. I've read everything that she's put out. I've read some of it, multiple times. I remember in her The Gifts of Imperfection, I bought a classroom set, and with my advanced and senior drama students, we would read through that and as part of the curriculum every other year. I also took chapter 4 or 5, which talks about the ideas of fitting in and belonging and what does that really mean. And students ate that up because they're cognitively at that point where a lot of the outside world and their friends are telling them how they should be. And they're not really getting to that source of, well, how do I really feel about this? Yes, I love my parents, or I don't get along with them, or I love this friend or these ideas, or I enjoy, this teacher's class or whatever. And instead of just like co-opting those folks' ways of being and putting it on themselves, to really look at what is attractive about that or what's not attractive about that and all the things in between, and really coming up with how they are in the world, and to know that that's not an end factor, right? Name of the book, Biggest, Fullest, Brightest. How do we expand as we go? Not just grow in the sense of bottom up, but expand out in all directions and truly, really allow ourselves to be fulfilled and live our biggest, fullest, and brightest life. So it's been an ongoing journey, and it continues to be an ongoing journey. But there definitely have been these places where now, when I look at the past as my education, I can see that there was a greater shift that occurred within me that allowed me to really truly see these tools as tools and not necessarily as shackles or yokes of shame to hold me down.
I adore you.
Thank you.
So, in full disclosure, like, this podcast is between 30 and 45 minutes long. And I think the last time Matthew and I got together, it was hours. Like, we sat for hours talking until we were both late for our next meetings. We just didn't care. It was too important to talk about these issues. So
Yes.
I love that you are sharing them. And what I really love about the book is that it allows people to sit with the thoughts for a while, to sit with thoughts like, how much of your thinking is your thinking? Oh, I mean, if we asked ourselves that every day, it wouldn't be enough. It's such an important thought. It's such an important lens for thought, right?
Yes.
And I know that you cover this in the book, but just while we have you here, can you explain a little bit about what you mean by how much of your thinking is your thinking?
Yes. That has been the catalyst of the work that I offer right now. And that was one of the things early on when I spoke just now about realizing that the outside world was influencing the way that I was viewing myself and how I saw myself in the world. And I was letting that come in. I was letting that indoctrination come in. That's when it was like, wow, Matthew, when you have these bouts of anger or depression and shame, how much of that is truly the way that you feel about yourself? Do you really feel that way about you? It's like, how much of that? And then once, seeing, I've had some powerful therapists, I've had powerful shamans in my life that I've done work with and looked at things. And one of the bigger turning points was, my father. And for the longest time, I just wanted him to say that he was proud of me. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to hear him say that he was proud of me. And he couldn't do it. And it wasn't in his world. And so through my therapy and things, I got to that point to be able to say, to have forgiveness for him, right? But it wasn't grace yet at that point. And not until I really started to work through some of these ideas of how much of your thinking is your thinking and started going, oh, that isn't my thinking. Cognitively, my brain wasn't developed yet. So I was absorbing my father's work, his personal work, and he didn't have the tools. He didn't go to a therapist. He didn't do these things. He wasn't self reflective in this way. He was survival and survival only. He was the second generation out of slavery. And so for me, that's when the grace started to happen. That's when it moved past forgiveness. And then to be able to give him grace, I started giving myself grace and saying, yeah, let's ask this question. And so when you say there's not enough time in the day to ask that question, I ask myself that question multiple times throughout the day, especially if I have a response where I'm judging myself with somebody else's success or somebody else's work, when I am feeling myself get a little bit of that anger when I see someone who is being hurtful and harmful to others or dehumanizing others, right? And let that anger have its place, but then also go, do I really want to dehumanize them back? Do I want to use the same tactics and tools that they are and treat them in the way that they're doing? My answer to that and where I'm at on my journey is no, I don't. But I wouldn't have been able to get there if I didn't ask myself first, how much of my thinking is my thinking? How much of this response that I'm having right now is my authentic self? Or how much of it is shadow? How much of it is the person that was indoctrinated and internalized all these racial oppressions, internalized superiority, internalized capitalism, internalized all these other factors that now cause me to respond in a particular way to others? And what also helps me and helps guide what I do is, like I said, that question led to me creating a workshop called Crafting Your Equity Lens. So it's an opportunity for people to take a 3-day course that helps them look, be introspective, and build and craft their own personal equity lens built from their lived experiences. So then every day, I read my equity lens. I started it at the start of the day today, and then I read it again before I got on this call with you. And it really helps me to now filter through. And as you said, I have a lens that I can look through that is more authentically me and not necessarily this construct of me. And so that's where how much of your thinking and where that comes from for me, what that question means and how it came into my life and still is a large part of my life.
And it's also ever evolving.
Oh, yes.
I think, and that's something as we do the work and then keep doing the work to craft our equity lens, if we're lucky enough to work with you, to do deep personal work. Even an authentic thought that we have 2 years ago isn't necessarily an authentic thought now. That was who I was then, and we've evolved. I also love this image of the spiral, right? That we're at a different point on the spiral now than we were 2 years ago. So we need to tweak it a little bit. It's never done. The work is never done. Thank goodness.
Yes.
Because it sure makes it interesting to keep doing it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, when I say work with a capital W, I feel that we have been indoctrinated and told that work is just too hard. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. That is just so hard. But then what I've done, and I see individuals do, now I've built a wall up against the joy that is on the other side of doing that work. And what I want to do is I want to be able to talk about that joy as well, that those moments of oh, I did that work and that sense of accomplishment, and now look at these folks that I have in my life, this job that I have now, this offering of my purpose that I'm giving to the rest of the world, and look at how I'm supporting others and being supported back because of that truth and being able to live that authenticity. And it's a place that I feel we've never gotten to. And a lot of folks sometimes are like, oh, you're talking about a utopia. And it's like, no, I'm not talking about a utopia. We're not happy and joyous all the time. We are happy and joyous because we are experiencing all the various emotions that make us human. And we're not listening to a society that says, you're not supposed to do this or do that. And oh, if you do it in private and don't do it out in public. And so we're constantly dehumanizing ourselves to a public space. And it's like, I should be able to bring all of me authentically and truthfully everywhere that I go. There shouldn't be any code switching or anything like that as I move out into the world. And so I want to make sure that even though we're using the word work and saying work, that we are really highlighting that accomplishment and that joy that comes from doing this work. And that, yes, is another way of saying lifelong learner, maybe, that our brains need to be fed just like our stomachs, and we need to constantly be learning, and we are, if we let ourselves, instead of ducking and weaving. Did I say something wrong? Did I dress incorrectly? Is my hair looking a particular way? And all those thoughts shifting through, instead of just being present and opening our eyes and connecting with one another through them.
I think of even the concept of joy. You talked about the concept of work, but even the concept of joy is different for each of us.
Yes.
What I find joyful, how I experience that in my body, is different from how you experience joy. And so seeking joy isn't sort of the Instagram version of joy, right? It's like, how much of your thinking is your thinking? Is what your really authentic joy is really yours? Are you really seeking the joy that is your joy to have? And I would even say that the work, not only is joy a part of the work, or can it be? And I do love how you bring it into the work. And I'm going to get to that in just a minute, because you actually get into it physically. And I think that's such a beautiful way to joy. Anyway, they are intertwined. Joy is work. Work is joy. They are the same thing if we're really getting honest with ourselves. And that does bring me to, throughout this book, there are a lot of cognitive approaches to the work. There's a lot of writing, which I would say is both cognitive and physical, that it's both. But you also, at various points, especially in some kind of heavy points, then you're like, stop, get in your body, get into starfish position.
Yes. Yeah.
And I want to thank you for that, because I think we get so in our heads that we forget our bodies, and they're not separate.
No. Thank you for bringing that up and for shining a light on that. It's also important as well. I feel that I did not put in there enough that our physical bodies are all over the place and in different places. Our mobility, our locomotion is different for each person. And I want to make sure that I'm expressing in the book that it's for your body and where your body is at. The reason that I put a lot of that in there is because that's been a huge part of my journey prior to learning about somatic healing, learning about epigenetics, learning about what is already there. As a theater practitioner yourself, along with myself, there was so much work done to characterize, to build these characters in their physicality and how they carry themselves in the world and how they move through the world. And her name went right out of my head. There's a woman, I watched her TED Talk, and she's talking about kind of standing in a power stance before you go into a job interview. And all of her language just went out of my head, but she speaks about standing in a position not only that's grounded, but feels powerful to you, that feels rooted, that you feel that you have this strength about you, that you are coming from a place of authenticity and that you're true to form and who you're going to be. And that really struck me as all the moments that I've done that in my life, where it's like, oh, I'm biting a nail, or I'm doing this. Let's put feet on the ground, palms on thighs. Let's sit up. Let's reach out into the universe with the top of the head. Let's feel the pelvis heavy down into the earth and feel that molten lava coming up through that and going into a golden, it's like all these things that I've taken in from various theater teachers and professors and others who are directors that were running things, and just like how real that is in my everyday life. And I wanted to share that as much as I could with other people, because I feel that we do leave our physical body out, because there's so much out there with body image, so much out there. And it's like, wait, authentically, this is where I'm at. I got a little more here, a little more there, kind of thing, and a little less here. And that's all right, because my heart feels strong, feels like it's doing what it's supposed to do, and I'm moving through the world. So putting that as part of this book, expanding into our biggest, fullest, and brightest, is a way, I believe, to help folks find the joy that we were just talking about, and that it's different. I'm not here to tell you what those things are. I think that was a great point that you brought up, Bree, that all of us have all of this that I talk about. It's for you to find out what these things mean for you. I don't want you to have the same thing as me. It may be similar, it may be whatever. I can say a word to a group of 1,000 people and they may eventually land on the same definition, but their experience to get to that definition or understanding of it is completely different. And to be able to celebrate that, acknowledge that, let that not be a source of shame, and to move forward, I think is really important. And because of the shame that we've put on the human body, on physical, it was really important for me to have that aspect in the book. So thank you for acknowledging it.
Well, thank you for doing it. And thank you even for taking us through that small exercise right there. I felt more grounded immediately. I had both feet on the ground and felt my heavy pelvis and felt my chest lift. And it was really, really nice. Thank you for that.
You are welcome.
I also was really struck by your discussion about cancel culture, particularly as it relates to perfectionism. Do you feel comfortable talking about that a little bit?
Yes, for sure. And of course, as we've been talking, and no, when I wrote the book, there was something that was very fresh. And now I'm at a place where I can look back at that, past as my education, and really add some more to what I put in the book at that point. I feel that...
Bonus content right here.
Right on. I feel that supremacy culture co-ops a lot of what is said by its counterpart. And so it'll co-opt and weaponize some of the verbiage, wokeness, cancel culture, et cetera, critical race theory. And so what happened with cancel culture is it was used as this, well, see, you say that you're all open and loving and caring for everybody, but you're canceling people and you're getting them fired from jobs and you're having them lose money and they've got families to take care of and ba 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 ba. And so I spent some time looking at the binary of that, right? Of the good and the bad, the right and the wrong, the black and the white, and then put my expanding into your biggest, fullest, and brightest on it. And what I came to is I'm not here to dehumanize anybody else. If I choose to not frequent this store anymore because of some of their policies and what they've done, I don't frequent their store. Do I need to talk trash about them and say horrible things about them? No. Do I want to share with other people the reason why I'm not going to the store? Yeah, I definitely will. And I can do that with individuals and people as well. And in the same breath, I'm going to invite them in. Oh, I heard you saying these things or this and that and blah, 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 blah. And I'll be like, yes. And so having that conversation, being able to still see people's humanity, I think is a really strong point. And J.K. Rowling is this huge person of that, right? A lot of the folks who are in that nerddom of the Harry Potter world are like, that's her stuff. This actually goes against a lot of what she's saying, what she's written, and how my lived experience has brought these characters to life and how I love and care for these characters is nothing like how she is in real life. And I'm not going to let her take that away from me. So I'm not going to cancel and not go to these things or not share these things with my children kind of stuff. But I'm definitely going to let them know how I feel about this and call them in and hope that they get the education so that they can start seeing other people's humanity as well. With me, when it comes to cancel culture, I want to be treated the way that I'm hoping I'm treating other people. I want somebody to say, to not just all of a sudden, I'm not there anymore. And it's kind of like on social media when the great block happened, when a lot of folks started blocking other people or unfriending other people and so on and so forth and things like that. There was a lot of divide and conquer from white supremacy's toolbox in there and divisiveness and division that was occurring. And sometimes for me, it was kind of in the middle of me figuring these things out and before cancel culture really hit. And it was like, no, I'm going to text this person or I'm going to message this person. Here's my phone number. Here's Messenger kind of thing. But you are causing harm to other people who I hold dearly because you're name calling. You are saying things that are abusive, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I'm unfriending you. That's why I'm blocking you from here. But I still have this connection with you. And so we can talk. If you so choose to and want to, we can talk. But if you start dehumanizing other people or start causing me harm through the language that you're choosing because you know it's going to cause me harm, then I'm done. And that's my right. Do I love you still? Yeah. Do I like you or like some of the things that you're saying? No, I don't. And these are the reasons why. And that's, to me, that's cancel culture. And it's evolution.
That's in its evolution. That's the way I would say that's a strong boundary culture there.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, definitely.
And I have experienced it firsthand where you and I were in a situation where you could have easily canceled me and you didn't. You called me in and you wanted to hear why I was making some choices that I was making and really held space with integrity. And that's something you don't forget. Just knowing that you model that. I mean, I know how you do that. And it's inspired me in how I interact with people when there is conflict or competition. Or because often when we're in competition with other people, we other them and we make them the bad guy. And then we look for reasons to cancel, right? We look for small mistakes or small things that are like, oh, done, you're done. I'm done with you. And, oh man, it takes such fortitude and courage to do that, to say, no, I'm going to make room. This relationship and situation is important enough to me that I'm going to reach out, even if it's awkward, especially if it's awkward, and have the awkward conversation that needs to be had so we can both grow from this. And that, making me tear up. It not only allows us to learn more, but it allows us to love more and for that to expand. And that is biggest, fullest, brightest, right?
Yes. Yes, yeah.
So Matthew, how can people get in touch with you? How can they take your workshops? I know they can buy the book. Tell us all the things.
I have a website, and thank you so much for that, Bree. And there was so much in what you shared just now of everything that we've been talking about. And I hope that you recognize that, and I hope that those things help you to expand into your biggest, fullest, and brightest, as I see you doing on the daily. You can get a hold of me through my website, which is mrrconsulting.org. And through there, you'll find all my social media links and places. The biggest thing is if you sign up on my email list, I do a gentle reminder every Monday to kind of start our week. And I say our because a lot of times people may respond to that and they're like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear this and so on and so forth, or they'll respond to something I post on social media. And it's because I needed to hear it. To be honest, it's a little bit selfish because it's like I put this out there because this is what I needed to hear today, and I'm just kind of sharing it. So it always means a lot to hear from folks when it's meant something to them as well. But those gentle reminders go out, and also what goes out through there is when our next open groups are. So what we've been doing is quarterly. So every 4 months or so, we do an open group that's open to any individual who wishes to craft their equity lens. Right now, I've been doing them over the weekend. So a Friday night and a Saturday and a Sunday, 3 hours each day for the workshop that you can sign up there. We also have what's called Let the Healing Begin with this, which is a self-paced module, which is actually those self-paced modules are part of the Crafting the Equity Lens workshop. It's kind of a front-loading email. It's kind of a prequel to get people ready for the workshop, but you can do it as a self-paced module. And let's say you do it now and, there's a price on that. You then get that price off of when you finally are like, I'm ready to craft my equity lens. And that could be months later, a year later kind of thing. So that's there. The book is there as well in the store. There's also testimonials. There's a couple of webinars, the very first webinar about my work, and then a more recent one about how it's evolved and shifted. And from there, we're putting together another offering that's called Community of Service, which you can find on my Patreon page. So I have a Patreon as well, where on that, if you've crafted your equity lens, there's 3 tiers. And on that third tier, if you've crafted it, it's called Community of Practice. And I have to thank you, Bree, for this, because in working with you on my TED Talk and how we found those 3 points, those actionable steps that are in there, I've now written curriculum for those 3 areas, and that's my community of practice. And so I had my first session last night with the folks that are on that third tier of my Patreon, making friends with your shadow. And it was hugely moving and inspirational for all of us involved. It was really powerful. And yeah, I'm smiling so big, but it wasn't a whole bunch of smiles last night. Making friends
Sure.
shadow and even getting to the point where, one of the practitioners was like, I'm not sure I want to make friends with it. You call it making friends with your shadow, but I'm not sure if I want it to be my friend. And I'm like, and that's more than fair. But that started another conversation that just unfolded so much more. And after crafting, this is a group of people that have all crafted their equity lens. So part of the curriculum pulls their current equity lens in and helps guide us through that journey of looking at friendship with the shadow. So thank you so much.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I'm really moved by that. And also, I'll be thinking about what it means to be friends with your shadow and what other kinds of relationships you can develop with your shadow.
Yes.
If friendship is not available to you,
Yes.
right? Like, what can you do? I also feel like this book is so important and useful that for any of my clients who are signing up for full packages with me, for full one-to-one packages with me in the next year, I'm going to give them a copy of this book. So I'm committing to that and really, really think it's a beautiful, beautiful tool. So thank you. And thank you for just being the extraordinary you that you are.
Thank you, Bree. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be a part of this expansion that you're going through. It means a lot to me to be here. So thank you for having me.
Here are my key takeaways from this conversation with Matthew Reynolds. It is worth it to relentlessly ask yourself, how much of my thinking is my thinking? Because that is one of the first steps of understanding our biases, or as I like to put it, the first step in our lovely unbecoming. Number 2, take a moment to reflect. Where are there opportunities for you to remove the conditions that you place on your love, on how you create a culture of acceptance and belonging? Number 3, when we are confronted with inequity, how can we find power in a response that is rooted in our desire for treatment? How can we respond lovingly with a capital L? And also, buy Matthew's book, Biggest, Fullest, Brightest, and check out his array of fabulous online workshops. Whether it's for you or for your company, crafting your equity lens allows us to expand in the most loving and powerful of ways. And the link is in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to the Pause to Go podcast. If you got something out of this episode, let us know. Share it with a friend, join our Facebook group, and subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts if you loved it. If not, no worries. We want you to tell it like it is, and we'd love to have your input. If you want to know more about what I'm up to, you can follow me on Instagram at The Lovely Unbecoming or at my website, thelovelyunbecoming.com. Stay curious, y'all.